I haven't even written the Discord. Ah! I need to figure out how the positioning of my microphone is gonna work, because I keep running into the issue where I, like, almost knock it over. Okay. Alright. Here. Let's see. There we go. Very nice. Okay. I have begun to cultivate what I think is a good habit of, like, setting the stream title a little bit beforehand, so I don't have to do as much clamoring on the day of, which is nice. So I settled on, you know, glory to the People's Keynesian Republic of Canada, and so forth. I have a couple things to say about the aftermath of the Canadian election. Most of it good, actually. Most of it is good things, actually. Although, obviously, because Mark Carney and the Liberals are still Liberals, there's going to be an asterisk with some of that, but yeah. That much is at least nice. Oh, shit. When in doubt, pick Mario, because his skin is incredible. This is also probably going to be a bit shorter of a stream today. Yo, what's up, bro, the boss? Welcome back. So, wringing my hands together, huh? Ugh. I talked a little bit about the Canadian elections last time because I was streaming on the day that the elections were happening. I stayed up late that night, actually, to watch those elections as they unfolded in real time, as the polling numbers came in. And it's kind of funny. Yeah, average Canada W, of course. I'll get to that in a sec. But the live coverage was in some ways a lot better, in some ways a lot worse, actually, if you can believe it, than the coverage of American elections. This is a problem that I didn't even know could exist, because it was almost like below what I expected to, like, anybody to even sync to. What's up, Gotron? Welcome back. Is that, like, there were some, if you guys watched the coverage, you'll know what I'm talking about here, but there were some, like, races going on where it was like there's like 100 or so polling stations, and they would show the results up and, like, make some kind of projection and analysis when there was one polling station reporting with a total of, like, a few hundred votes. And it was like, oh, this candidate has 50 votes and this other candidate has 49. And they're like, wow, this could mean up to blah, 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 blah. And it was like, man, what are you doing? It's like, this province has something like 20,000 people in it, and you're like, oh my god, electoral upset when, like, 5 votes are in. So, that was really funny to watch, because it was like, you know, you guys should probably fix that. But, as the night went on, more and more results poured in, and I feel like that part of the coverage is ultimately forgivable, because obviously they only started talking about that as the polls had closed and results were coming in. So all the votes were already cast. And of course, the result of those votes is that the Liberal Party of Canada won not a majority, to my recollection, but a plurality of the votes, which is good. It's almost like they were like, don't worry, Republicans still have a possibility of winning. Yeah, it did seem kind of like that. The news coverage, it sort of seemed like when they err on the side of caution or whatever, they always be like, oh, well, the Conservatives can still make up ground here. And it's like, come on, guys. You know? Although, to their credit, they did actually call the election pretty early for the Liberals. They were like, yeah, it looked like pretty early on, they were like, oh yeah, it's pretty evident that the Liberals are winning this election. They are going to win. All the data that we have, and from what, from the vote count that is, like, coming in, it seems like the Liberals are going to win, and the question is by how much, you know? Yeah, it's like the whole trying not to look biased in a case where like the set of facts that you're dealing with so obviously indicates one thing makes you biased towards the other thing, right? Like if you're still trying to play it 50-50 when there's a 99.9% chance that the liberals are winning this election, that means you're biased for the conservatives and you're trying to like gas them up basically, you know? So that was pretty cringe. But what wasn't cringe is that the liberals won and the conservatives lost. Get fucked, idiots. And now I kind of want to talk about some of the implications of this election, the results and whatnot. First of all, we have to mention that this is in fact the funniest timeline. Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, lost his own seat. He ran against a liberal politician as the incumbent, mind you. He was in that seat. He was already an MP in order to be, you know, the leader of the Conservative Party. And he lost his own election. Not only did the Conservative Party lose, their leader lost. And, you know, he's fucking cooked. His career in politics is completely done, you know? And yeah, and in fact, it was in no small part, I bet it was relevant to why that happened, that Donald Trump on the same day took to Truth Social and said, Pierre Poilievre, he's great, by the way. He loves Canada, loves Canadians. I would love Canada if it were part of the United States. The border, the Canadian border, it's a pretend border. It's not real. It's a fake line drawn in the sand. And we should accept it into America as the 51st state. My Trump impression isn't great because I'm just started, but you get the idea, right? That was the gist of his post. I would be hard pressed to cite it because it was like way more schizophrenic than I could manage, and had caps lock everywhere. And Pierre Poilievre was like, haha, oh, you stop it. I support Canada, but also like, thank you, President Trump, or something. So predictably, it was a blowout. Imagine how mad the average Canadian would be in an altered universe where they're forced to integrate with America. Oh yeah, they would be pissed. Because Canada actually has like a national ego in that way. So, funniest timeline, Comrade Trump campaigns on behalf of Mark Carney by throwing his support behind the conservatives, continuing to show that the American far right is toxic for other like far right movements. I can touch on that in a second, bro the boss. But yes, so that was one implication of this election. I think some of the other implications for Canada of this election is that we might see a something reminiscent of post-war social democracy, and it does also bode well for the fate of countries outside of the United States related to the far right. You know, since the United States exports far right ideology, we are a cultural exporter of fascism because fascism is an ideology of capital. Capital is international, thus so is fascism. But because it's exported from America, it's going to resemble America. So every country hates us for that because, you know, the American fascists have been like, we're going to put tariffs on everybody and you all need to, like, suck my balls or something. That, I think, means that other countries will probably be more hostile to fascism in the coming years, which is good. You know? And, of course, Mark Carney being, I think, maybe not even a neoliberal so much as a Keynesian liberal, means that Canada might be in for some good, like, policy nerd shit, like, with affordable housing policy and things like that. This bodes well for countries outside of America. As for America, I don't think it bodes particularly well. I don't know if it bodes poorly either. But I think insofar as the 2028 election in America, I don't think that there's much that we can get from this election, because, like, if you look at the electoral circumstances in America, it's still cooked. The Democrats still suck. The Republicans are still evil. And it's very likely that we don't really have a proper election in 2028. It looks like for some time, America is going to be in a similar position, electorally speaking, to somewhere like Hungary or Turkey, where you have still a vestige of liberal institutions and institutionalism and things like that, but there is no free and fair elections. Like, it's kind of a one-party state, you know? Both because the Republicans, the Republican Party, the far right in America, is rigging the game, and because the Democrats are unwilling to, like, fight back. At the very least, you could say this season will be memorable, presidential season. You could very well say that. I think if J.B. Pritzker is the American presidential candidate in 2028, then we might be Barack. We might be so Barack. But until then, I think it's still kind of looking Jover for America. But either way, another L on the illustrious belt of L's for global fascism. That's always a good thing for everybody. And I've seen a lot of people being really optimistic for Canada's future because, like I said, Mark Carney and the Canadian Liberals look like they're pivoting towards social democratic policymaking, stuff like affordable housing and basically shoring up the mental health care system and stuff like that. Good job, Canada. You didn't elect the fascists. You notice they actively make fun of Trump on their news? Yes, it's actually crazy how cucked American news is, because you can look at other countries' news and they will much more willingly make fun of the far right in their country and in other countries, right? Like, Canadian news was all over that shit. You're the drama about Amazon. Yes, that was another thing that I heard about. The tariffs have started to figure into the prices of things in the United States, especially as the coming weeks approach. And inventories is projected to decline precipitously. Ships have stopped arriving in port. Obviously, the supply chain, of which Amazon is a massive part, is going to be affected by this. For the briefest little while, Amazon did something that I consider to actually be pretty funny and cool, which is that they had the marked up price. They marked up their prices and stuff to reflect the tariffs, and they actually reflected tariffs and import charges as a separate expense in the price tag. However, because Trump has an ego as fragile as sugar glass, he fucking took one look at that and was like, Amazon, you gotta stop that. Do not put the tariffs in the price tag. You can increase the prices. Ironic given what Trump campaigned on and what his supporters allegedly wanted from him. But just don't indicate that I'm at fault for in any way for, like, increasing those prices. And yeah, any sane individual with a spine, such as any of the Giga Chads that frequent my chat, thank you, would be like, you know what, fuck you, I will do it anyway, and it would instantly crater the support for the administration, for the government. But no, because Bezos is a massive pussy, what he did instead was he just instantly complied. I don't know, because, like, some sort of internal politics in the administration, but also because this is like part of the ruling class interest, right? If they increase the price, if Amazon increases the price without telling you how much of that price increase is due to tariffs, they can sort of leave the assumption hanging that the entire price increase is due to tariffs. But they could just be on the back end being like, let's increase the price more. We'll increase it a little bit more. Let's fatten our margins a little bit, which no doubt is what they're doing. This is why we have price transparency as a concept. This is why we want price transparency. So we know what is a legitimate increase in production expenses versus what is just, this is just for our profit margin. You know? So this, like, Amazon walking back on this works out both for them and Trump, which is why they did it. But regardless, the sweet treats are going to be more expensive. You know, the average American treatler is will be molding. This will probably include me as well, because I occasionally do need to buy like some cheap electronic equipment from Amazon. Like here, I have one of these right in front of me. This, you see this? This is a adapter. You put an SD card in right here, and then it converts to USB, because my computer doesn't have a working USB connection. This kind of stuff relies on semiconductors that are manufactured in Taiwan, and obviously it's got some other cheap stuff in it as well, which is likely assembled and produced in somewhere like China or Vietnam or you know, like Thailand or whatever, right? And those are the kind of things that are going to become twice as expensive. In fact, from the brief preview that we got of the tariff price tags, it seems that, like, my more exaggerated predictions early on when I was talking about tariffs were correct. Things are going to cost probably 2 times as much as they cost before the tariffs, you know, which means that whatever the tariff, like the actual number amount was, it's going to figure into probably a clean 100% increase on the price tag. And yeah, people are going to be mad at this. Ooh. That was a good shock, I think. And then I'm going to off-road. For a second, I thought that guy was going to swerve into me, so I tried to drive out of the way, but he just kept going straight. So props to that guy for that. And then I'm a little bit of a silly, dumb individual for that one. This is a dangerous game. Whoa! Okay, okay, alright, alright. In fact, on that subject, I actually wanted to take a look at a Blue Sky thread that I found quite informative and entertaining on the subject of what the reaction is going to be to tariffs affecting the prices and stock of things on the store shelves. Because it does speak to a broader sort of trend that started in the 20th century with the offshoring of labor. You know how, like, they advertised that the tariffs were to bring back American manufacturing and whatever, because, like, NAFTA hollowed out a bunch of manufacturing jobs here, hollowed out small town America, stuff like that. That did happen, but the broader trend that that's a part of cannot be reduced to, oh, we lost manufacturing jobs. No, it is the well, I will let the Blue Sky poster explain what the actual trend is, and then I'll comment on it a little bit further, right? My parents voted Trump to decrease prices, and imagine that. They got exactly what they wished for. Prices decreased by negative 100%, which means they increased by plus 100%. Yes. Do I still have this up on Blue Sky? No, okay. It's a good thing I saved the link. Okay. This isn't like an academic or something. This is just a random guy that I found insightful. I don't even follow him. Damn. Maybe I should follow this guy. I think I will, actually. Here. They say, intensification of proletarianization in the imperial core due to capitalist crisis and climate change will form the terrain on which the next wave of militant labor struggles will be fought. And I'll unpack this in a second. Americans realizing the only way they can keep having their treats is if they get rid of capitalists and equally distribute wealth would be pathetic but a fitting development. Software workers not getting radicalized by their coding labor being turned into dead labor fueling AI, while people making billions off it is pissing me off. Also, get mad, you assholes. but also their salaries normalize along with everybody else. So I do think we have to be serious about adding them to the movement. Also, their skills are useful. Proletarianization, big word, really fancy word, but fundamentally, the NAFTA is just a part of that trend. It itself is not the trend. We, like, the whole model of liberalism relies on a colonial or quasi-colonial framework, right? It's extractive, and you have to have somewhere to extract from, right? You have the inner circle, and then you have everybody else. It used to be that you could get away with having an inner circle that was pretty big as long as there was wealth to extract from, like elsewhere, right? And from other people. The problem is that circle is shrunk over time by necessity. In order to keep that economic model churning, the circle had to get smaller and smaller, and the outer circle, the people that got extracted from, had to get bigger and bigger. Basically, when you hear proletarianization, think pauperization. Think like everybody getting poor, life getting more shit, working conditions like getting worse and worse, and basically the standard labor conditions being like slave labor and stuff. That is like the modus operandi. That's like the normal way that this shit operates. And as the margins of profit shifted and shrunk, you know, insert meme about tendency of the rate of profit to fall or some shit like that, they had to find more and more people to exploit, which meant that, like, you couldn't just rely on like exploiting countries in the third world. You had to start looking at home. You know, sweatshops started developing in America. We had to offshore our manufacturing jobs. The prosperity that we experience in the United States and in what would be considered the imperial core had to shrink in order to keep the imperial core on top, right? It's kind of paradoxical. Like the countries that really benefited from capitalism, in order to keep it moving, to benefit them, they had to start cannibalizing themselves, cannibalizing their own industries and workforces, until now, this is one form of like the chickens coming home to roost, right? It's, you know, now the inner circle has shrunk so much that there's basically like a dozen guys in America that benefit from this. Like, they're the only ones. And like, everybody else is going to naturally start drifting into territory that we would expect from, like, I don't know, a fucking sweatshop or slave laborers in the global south somewhere. You know, those are the conditions that are starting to appear more and more. Does that make sense? Liberals will fight to the death before realizing capitalism is not the only answer. And when stuff hits the fan, they'll just fly away. For the capital class, yeah. But that's, you know, it also poses a point of radicalization. Like this person said, when your sweet treats are threatened, you tend to get pretty mad at whatever's threatening them. And at a certain point, it's literally unavoidable that you recognize, oh, all the oligarchs don't want me to have good things. They don't want me to have a good life, because me prospering and other people like me prospering is like directly contrary to them accumulating more wealth. And that is class consciousness. Again, kind of pathetic, but yeah, it's possible that the tariffs making life more expensive for everybody in America is what finally gets people to realize that there's a class war. Because these tariffs don't benefit anybody except for like 5 people on top of everything. Now my brother thinks funny enough, my younger one. Yeah, because a lot of, you know, a lot of people are you know, people are kind of dumb. Not about tariffs, but just stuff in general. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people think like that. We've been witnessing a sort of working classification of America and of countries that were previously part of the imperial core, right? It kind of like, you know how the Democrats won't shut the fuck up about the middle class? The middle class doesn't exist anymore. The middle class was only capable of existing while there was a working class outside of the country and also inside the country to exploit. But once that sort of well ran dry, they had to refill the well with people who were part of that middle class, you know? So society increasingly has been sorted to just the working class and the owning class. Like, that's it. people started to get more rights, they expected better treatment. That forces the higher up people to go to other underprivileged people. Yes, that's exactly right. When people have rights, you have to look somewhere else to like exploit people, and eventually you can only exploit a certain region so hard before you like can't meet your growth targets, right? Remember, like the you know, quarterly growth and profits and whatever isn't just we want to make the same amount of profit every quarter. It's we want to grow how much profit we're making. That's not a sustainable model. So eventually you're like, man, you know, we can't grow anymore. And that inevitably leads companies and billionaires to be like, well, what if we took more people's rights away so that we can exploit them and wring just a little bit more money out of them to make our growth targets for like the next quarter or whatever, you know? And the fact that we're seeing this now in America, the most top dog of like the entire world for the longest time, means that like capitalism is truly reaching the point beyond which it actually can't function anymore. You know, like the last group of like the working class that you would exploit is the working class at home. It's like what is it, boomerang theory? It's all well and good when you're exploiting people in other countries, but then you start exploiting people in your country, and that's when it becomes like really unsustainable. That's what this is. We tell liberals this, they're like, shut up, communists. Some liberals. I will say, look, there have been a lot of liberals out there. The average American liberal, I still maintain that they are cringe and liberals. There is no saving them. Well, maybe there is saving them, but look. A lot of people are starting to come around to this as it starts to affect them more directly, you know? Like, if you say some extremely Marxist shit, as long as you don't sound Marxist when you're saying it, even conservatives in this country will be like, hell yeah, brother, we're getting fucked by giant corporations and we want our life back. You know? And that's good. That's actually what we want from this sort of accelerationism. Not only to destabilize like the government and the shit that it's been doing to consolidate power in the capital class, but to accelerate like the development of that consciousness, a class consciousness. You heard Trump talking about the military? That reminds me. I think I heard a little bit about it. You mean like the $1 trillion military budget or something? Or was this about like them wanting to bomb Iran or some shit? Yeah, there's so much going on. Still think of ways to use it on civilians. Oh yeah, I don't doubt that. Especially since like they decided not to do the Insurrection Act. They decided not to do like martial law yet. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. They're still trying to think of ways to use the military against the American like civilian population. Which, again, it's like already a thing that we did against the working class of other countries, right? Like, you know, American mercenaries and whatever have been fucking up civilians in sub-Saharan Africa for a long time. Real life is like Star Wars? Yes, exactly. Look, it is actually so easy to use Star Wars as a point of comparison, because it's like, oh yeah, you got the rebels who are like honest working people who form this like militant front ready to fight the Empire, and then you've got the Empire, which is a big evil machine full of incompetent fucks all jockeying with each other to get ahead in terms of like wealth and status. And why are they evil? Well, because they violate people's rights and work them to death so they can like write a nice report to like whoever the fuck and get a nice nepo baby promotion, you know? It's fundamentally like the same dynamic that exists in real life. Sequels try to avoid the political element, which is another reason why they're bad. You know what? Yeah, I agree. The only I think, and this is why The Last Jedi is the best out of the three of them, because it kind of dips its feet back into that political dimension, you know? But still, the sequels aren't that great. Only been half an hour. Yeah. I mean, this was going to be a shorter stream anyway, because it's a little bit warmer today. I don't want to go on for too long. I start a little bit late. None of those first 6 original movies would be able to come out in modern times. I think they would be able to. I don't think they would be as widely, I just relieved I didn't come in too late. Okay, yeah. I think they would say they're too political to make. I actually disagree. Political, like very political media, very left-leaning media is extremely profitable as more and more people are disillusioned with liberalism and start to like really fucking hate the capital class. Look at the success of stuff like Squid Game and fucking Parasite and like Andor and The Boys and whatever, where the bad guys are big corpos, right? Like, if anything, I feel like the original trilogy's tone of optimism would be the most likely thing to sink it. You know what I mean? But no, I think like people are ready for that sort of messaging because like that's a critical element of capitalist recuperation. Anti-capitalism in media is pretty profitable and popular. So a lot of businesses will try to capitalize on that sentiment by being like, you know what, people really like this, so what we're going to do is basically say, yeah, you know, if we get a cut of the profits for this, we'll like help you, encourage you to make this. And it sort of has this, pacifying effect. That's just kind of what makes recuperation what it is. But it's also a double-edged sword. This was something that I wanted to mention about recuperation specifically. I was thinking about this. Especially in a time of crisis, in a time of accelerating class consciousness. It's possible for capitalist recuperation to be its own downfall, I think. I don't know if there's any like academics that have talked about this before, but like recuperation, even though it can have like a pacifying effect, because like a lot of times, you know, a show or a movie has to have like a cathartic ending, like a good ending to satisfy audiences and stuff. It does also frequently incorporate that element of class consciousness in a very unavoidable way. And that, like, media being really, really popular will lead people to that sentiment, right? So basically, the more anti-capitalist media you have produced in a capitalist system, the more capitalism is telling people to be anti-capitalist, if that makes sense. But they're telling people that because they know that a lot of people will listen if they say that. And the more people listen, the more money they make. The problem is eventually it doesn't matter how much money you make if people are so anti-capitalist that they're willing to be like, hey, yeah, you know, we'll buy that rope from you so we can hang you with it or something like that. You know what I mean? Luke was planning on joining the fascist government until they killed his parents. I don't think that was I don't think that was what was going on there. There's literally a line in Star Wars A New Hope where he's like, it's not that I like the Empire, I hate it, but there's nothing I can do about it right now. He was planning on like going to the academy, which I assume would be an imperial academy just because that's the framework of the state in that world. And that's like synonymous with economic opportunity, right? You go to the academy, you get an education, you get like a bureaucratic job somewhere, right? And it doesn't necessarily need to be working for the Empire, whatever it is, right? What? No one's happy under fascism. Yeah, that's right. Fascism is an anti-happiness ideology, right? You know, like, Luke was not planning to be, like, an ideological foot soldier of the Empire. Maybe he was planning to get some sort of imperial accreditation, because it's like, I mean, yeah, that's the government, right? But no, he was just like, I don't want to be living on the farm my whole life. You know, I'm gonna go, like, do something else. But then the Empire, like, killed his parents, so he was like, that's it. I already hated the Empire. Now it's like, what do I have left to lose, right? We don't know how many those stormtroopers are believers. That's true. You know, it's from various Star Wars, like, games and media and whatever, but also just from, like, the insinuation that this is a relatively analogous political situation to, like, real life. You know, some of the stormtroopers are true believers because, you know, they get paid well enough, and the Empire's like, look, we'll sweeten the pot if you sign up, right? And some of them are like, yeah, the Empire's done real good things for me, so I'm you know, I'm all in on it. And, you know, some of them are true believers, but a lot of them aren't. A lot of them are just there for the sweetening of the pot, you know? Think about the Solo movie, right? Where like, Han Solo is just trying to escape gangs, and he becomes an Imperial soldier. Because it's like, yeah, this will just get me off this planet and get me somewhere else. I don't know. There's plenty of the stormtroopers in the rank and file that don't really care one way or the other about being there. You know? But at the end of the day, they are still stormtroopers. So, you know, that's a little bit about Star Wars in the modern context, and recuperation, media recuperation, where, like, anti-capitalist critiques get absorbed into capitalism. I think there's only so long that capitalism can really do that. Some people get mad at you if you tell them Luke is a terrorist, even though it's correct. Yeah. Yeah, the rebels are, in fact, terrorists. They have committed acts of terrorism against a fascist government. Use look up Google in future, Hulk vs. Capitalism. I think you'll like it. I think I have heard of that, and yeah, it might be a fun thing to look up sometime. Like, the entire movie of Rogue One is about how, like, fascism is so oppressive that even acts of terrorism could potentially be justified in order to fight it, you know? And, like, the real Rebel Alliance was the friends we made along the way or something. Greater story. Yeah, I know. George Lucas has said, like, yeah, the Empire is America, and the rebels are the Viet Cong. Because he made the movie, like, the movie came out in 1977, which is only 2 years after the Vietnam War ended. My dad had, saw the first Star Wars movie in the theater when it first released in 1977. You know? And ever since then, Star Wars has been a fixture in his life, has been a fixture in my life, you know? So we learned a lot about Star Wars. Shoveled the whole board game. Cat moment. Certified cat moment. Had a blue shell, haha. I think I'm good. Yeah. Yes, sorry, Republicans. All the media you like is actually left-leaning. True. And I, like, legitimately true. Because the vast majority of art is very left-leaning. In fact, I'd be... The rare examples of art that are right-leaning, that I would still consider to be art, and in fact good art, would be stuff like, Lovecraftian horror, eldritch horror, because it focuses on the like incomprehensibility as a mode of fear, you know? Apart from that, even most horror is left-leaning, you know? Probably I don't like Lovecraft. Yeah, Lovecraft himself, I actually don't think, like... I don't know. I like stuff that's inspired by Lovecraft. You know, eldritch horror. There is, like... There's a version of it that I really, really like. But I think Lovecraft himself, the like, monsters that Lovecraft thought up, I don't think I'm a huge fan of. It's a little bit too mystical and, like... Well... I don't know. I guess, you know what? Part of it probably comes from the fact that it was a first attempt, that he's trying to describe the indescribable. Which leads to him being like, oh yeah, Cthulhu, it has the body of a man and devil wings and like a octopus head or something like that. Which to me is like, not only comprehensible, but just sounds a bit goofy. You know? Yeah, that's true. No fictional character can be beyond your comprehension because it was like created by a person, which is not beyond any of our comprehension. Everything I get when I search up Lovecraft looks weird, to say the least. Yeah, I mean, like, his monsters and stuff were very creative. I just don't know how I feel about, like, his storytelling and stuff. I don't know. I've only heard like an audiobook or like narration of like one or two Lovecraft things. I tend to be more, I guess it's because it's like very context dependent, right? Like the situations in which horror takes place, very colored by the time period that it's written in and stuff like that. I tend to prefer the more modern, like, eldritch horror and stuff like that. Media to Republicans is horror for obvious reasons. True. It's because Republicans are all a bunch of freak show monsters that want to kill you. Many such cases. Yay. I'm actually racing pretty well today, which is nice. Well, I guess that's why. Well, no, look, you know what? I was gonna say, low VR room. I don't believe in that shit. Identity crisis. There are a lot of fictional characters people like, but if the fictional character met them, they would hate them. That's true. What came to my mind was actually Jesus isn't entirely a fictional character. There was a real man named Jesus who lived in Palestine in Nazareth. He would fucking hate the average Christian, probably. You know? Like, you talk about, like, yeah, the version of Jesus that is fair-skinned, has long flowing hair and a well-groomed beard and a halo around his head. You know, like, that version of Jesus is 100% fictional, and in fact, is inspired more by the Greek god of Zeus than by the man himself from Nazareth in Palestine, right? Like, the version of Jesus that is worshipped in modern Christianity, for most Christians, you know, is more similar to, or I guess I should say most American Christians, maybe not most Christians, well, it depends, is more similar to Zeus, and is in fact directly inspired by Zeus, rather than Jesus of Nazareth. You know, especially with all the emphasis on divinity and incomprehensible spiritual acts that put him above the level of humanity, that he is the son of a divine being or something like that, you know? Because when you get right down to it, Jesus was a normal-ass guy whose name translates to Joshua. Like, imagine there's just a fucking based guy, you know, named Joshua who does a shit ton of community service and, like, who's really politically active at the local level. That's basically what Jesus was like. More or less. Sounds like my average activist? Yeah, because he was. When I know is political? Nice. Shoutouts to all the left-leaning politically active homies named Joshua. Right after I say I was racing really well, I get a bottom spot. That's how Mario Kart goes. But yeah, you know, to go back to fictional characters, you think of somebody like somebody from Star Wars, like Luke Skywalker, or fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi, or like, I don't fucking know. Any one of the people on the good guys' side would probably not have very many kind things to say about the far right. Because that's the ideology of the Empire. This suffocating, overly, like, controlling ideology which has a pretty pronounced disdain for just everybody, and especially hates ethnic minorities. People got mad. They realized, wait a minute, Superman wouldn't deport immigrants. Yeah, a suspicious number of people got mad when there was when there were comic books written about Superman, like, beating up the KKK and, like, protecting immigrants from, like, extremely Hitlerite border enforcement agents. You know? Oh, I hope I didn't hit that. Oh, no. I think I did hit that guy. Dang it. Well, I guess that's kind of the risky run when you're in a cart. So you take turns pretty wide. The only heroes that wouldn't apply to would be the Punisher. Actually, that might even, like, even with the Punisher, like, is the easiest one to misinterpret because he's, like, the closest to a real-life, mentally unstable vigilante. But even in the Punisher comics, they're like, nah, he, like, doesn't go after people that blatantly don't have any fucking power, right? And he hates cops because his family was murdered by the mob, and the cops didn't do anything because they were all affiliates of the mob, you know? So he's like, yeah, the cops only protect power. They don't give a shit. As long as they collect their paycheck, they're fine. And add on top of that, in real life, John Bernthal is a really fucking cool person. People would hate Iron Man for trying to stop January 6th. True. Iron Man is probably the closest thing to figure that people on the right would actually like. But he would say that, like, racism is bad, so they'd be like, boo! You know? Like, he's still a billionaire. He's, like, a billionaire genius, which is conservatives' favorite thing to, like, go gluck, gluck, gluck on a daily basis over. But, you know. Basically, because he's smart and not their image of what smart is, they would hate him. How many people in the West are still racist? So I wonder. Probably a lot, like a lot of people. A lot of people. Imagine a Marvel comic where Iron Man's like, sorry guys, I had to get Trump, we need fascism. True. God, that'd be funny. Too many people for sure. Oh yeah. Look, there's plenty of people who are like either latently or blatantly racist in the West. You know? And you know, there are a number of like natural things that lead us to having certain like tribalistic or otherwise internalized sort of biases to that effect. And I don't like, you know, in politics, it's like, yeah, you know, you should minimize, like, there's stuff you can do to minimize the presence of that in like government policy making and stuff. And in systems, that's why we make the distinction between interpersonal and systemic racism. But interpersonal racism is pretty common, you know? But there are people who are interpersonally racist, you know, or like, at the very least, like, kind of fucking inconsiderate and like, really racially insensitive or something like that, who do not like systemic racism, who are anti-racist ideologically, you know? Because they're kind of like different things. Hey, people that are like, if I can't be perfect, I might as well not even try. We call those people perfectionists, I think. That's a tendency that typically is associated with, like, perfectionism, is that you experience, like, a really profound sense of defeat that kind of paralyzes you if you can't get it exactly right, you know? And it leads to a lot of the stuff you do being kind of performative and not genuine anyways. I say this because when I was little, I had some very perfectionist tendencies, and I really, really suffered for it. That mostly manifested in school, though. But the key with, like, nice. The key with, like, not being interpersonally racist is just not to be a huge asshole and to be, like, I don't know, not to even be necessarily all that careful with your language or whatever, but to count on your friends to be like, bro, that was, like, a little bit racist, and then you say, my bad, I won't say that again. You know? Like, that's it. Our new edition we bought yesterday. Oh, cool. X-Men movie Logan, where they're, like, re-experimented on immigrants for soldiers. Yes, I do remember that. What's her name? Laura? X-23? I forget if she's X-23 or X-24 or whatever the, like, X-Men number is for her. Yeah, she was, she's, like, Wolverine's daughter or something like that. Sun. Ah, I see. People like Logan, but forget it's critiquing the immigration process. Oh, yeah, with, like, all these fucking militant-ass border patrol that'll just fucking look for any excuse at all to violate your rights, and it's like, you know, just a bunch of, like, miserable pieces of shit. It also portrays, like, a very Mad Max-style, like, late capitalist world where, like, everything is shit, nobody has a regular job anymore, and you can either be like a merc that violates human rights for fun, or a, like, you know, some guy that barely scrapes by on gig work and you get beat up every week. You know? Got defeated by the power of corn. Yeah, that fucking high fruit. It's really funny how it is just not subtle that they're saying, yeah, like high fructose corn syrup is a fucking plague on the health of people generally. Defeated by corn of all things. That's hilarious. That's an America moment. Fucking, I lose to corn. Probably alright that I'm back here at this point. Everybody else is not too far ahead of me. I need a box more than anything. There we go, got one. Okay. Very possible there's a shock, in which case I might be screwed, but okay, well. Oh, is that Twister? I only saw like one frame, but... I just kind of spammed that. I'm gonna get shocked at the line. It's not gonna matter. Dang. Seconds avoid wonder what happened to her. I don't know what that means. But again, like I've said in the past, I don't watch that much X-Men stuff, so I probably wouldn't know. Wolverine's daughter? Oh, okay, yeah. How would Disney do X-Men without offending Republicans? They'd make it shit so nobody would watch it, or they wouldn't do it at all. That's how. But they'd make it shit in a way that, like, didn't draw attention. They would make it, like, not interesting. That's how they would do it. It's kind of, you know, that's kind of the only way you can do it without attracting the ire of fascists, because the X-Men are pretty blatantly supposed to be an allegory for the queer community. Yeah. I thought I could be nice with it and, like, end the wheelie or hop right before I hit that guy, but I couldn't, so I got wheelie bumped. Yeah, it is Twister. What's up? Oh, okay. I'm just gonna go this way. If you like Professor Flowers, fucking true. Okay, that wasn't so bad for me. Maintaining third is probably my priority here, since Twister's got a red or I could get a draft. Okay, well. Yeah, okay. A mushroom. Damn it. You can, well, I was gonna say you can pass, but he hit me with his trail. You imagine that Magneto live stream? God, that would be... I don't know if that would be, like, captivating or insufferable, because, like, you either, like, with Magneto, that was, like, the worst of all possible outcomes there. With Magneto, it's either, like, Fassbender or McKellen, right? So either way, like, I'm gay for them, right? But they might also still be talking about how we have to kill all the non-mutants or something, which would be pretty cringe. You know, like that would be bad. Them and Vosh. I could. It'd be like the Professor Flowers debate, but then Magneto might actually try to, like, strangle him through the internet or some shit. Be like, bro. Bullet bill. Okay. Well, I may as well use it here. Please, nobody have red shells behind me. Okay, thank goodness. Wasn't America? Oh, yeah, you mean like South Africa? Yeah, that guy is funny. I think I know who you were talking about. But of course, the context is different because they're arguing with, like, people... They're arguing with people who are also extremely racist. Like in South Africa, that guy, it was like... The kill whitey versus we want to continue apartheid. Like, those were the two angles in the debate. And so it's like heartwarming. The worst people you know are all fighting. That's how I felt about that anyways. It's okay to kill dictator stuff, just not everybody else. That's true. That is true. Cheap Cheap Island. Which version of Cheap Cheap Island is this gonna be? I don't know what time the meeting is for me. Progressive History. They said it was gonna be Wednesday for Alaska. Oh yeah, you got that coming up soon, huh? I wish the best of luck to you for that. And, you know, it's good to remind yourself that there's, like, still stuff that you can do in a situation like this. Trying to think of, like, what else. Be strong, eat a lot of oranges for obvious reasons. True. Eat that fucking vitamin C, that citric acid and stuff. Good vitamins. And also manifest that the orange man will soon kick the bucket, I suppose. You know? Whenever the left gets misrepresented, it's like annoying. But then whenever a Republican gets misrepresented, it's like, how dare you? I need to go kill the political opponents right now. Yeah, the crazy thing is, like, you don't even need to misrepresent them. You just have to, like, say, yeah, this is what Republicans believe, and they'll be like, we need to kill them for this, or something like that, right? Well, there was a story I think I forgot about. I don't know if I even shared this on stream. I'll try to find the link to it after this. But it was like, in some state, there was actually like it was like a child labor measure that was defeated at the ballot box by popular vote. It was like a referendum that people in the state actually got to vote on or something like that, which is a relatively uncommon instance in America. You know, our democracy is pretty shit even where it does exist. And the Republicans, because they proposed the law or whatever, they actually got mad and were like, instead of, you know, just being like, okay, well, you know, we didn't get our way or whatever, the fucking entitled pieces of shit went and said, like, yeah, this is why we shouldn't have democracy. This is why popular caprice is bad, or something like that. because it lets people vote against our rollback of child labor, you know, practices or something like that. Here, let me see if I can find it. I think Kyle Kolinsky of Secular Talk talked about it. Let me search on his channel. Depending on the people, like if it doesn't hurt someone directly, it should be allowed to stay on platform. What? I'm not sure I understand the question. People that are anti-terms of service, brain dead. You need terms of service. People don't realize terms of service for companies is optional. Why do you think they're so popular? Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it's like, you know, you enforce things based on convenience, but like fundamentally, it's like if you didn't have terms of service, everywhere would just become a Nazi cesspit like 4chan or Twitter at this point, you know? And nobody wants that because that like left-leaning people, again, this is what leads to recuperation being a thing, is it like the motor to produce anti-capitalist media. You have to make the environment somewhat hospitable to like left-leaning people and people who aren't exclusively Nazis and capital class dick riders, because they compose, like, those people compose a very large segment of the population and thus will compose a very large segment of the people that use any given website or application. You don't want, like, if you're a company, you don't want those people leaving your platform en masse, because then there's nobody left but the most insane, like, 4chan Nazis, you know? Rick, I said ass wrong. Watch your language. Swearing. What the Sigma? There's no law that says you have to choose a term of service. They just chose to. Yeah, it like, there are laws that govern the internet, but like terms of service is not a like absolute legal requirement, right? It's for companies. It's just it's protect them from liability and to make sure that their platform is profitable enough for them to keep running, you know? Oh, almost. I think everybody leaves a website, it turns into a hellscape. Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, this like isn't fucking fun to use anymore or anything like that, so I'm just gonna leave. And that's what happens if you don't have terms of service. Phones are like, where is everybody? Yeah, and this happens every time they try to make a social media outlet, because nobody likes being around right-wingers, not even other right-wingers. Everybody depends on the presence of lefties in the social media space in order for social media to be even remotely usable. You know? The entire identity of the right wing is built on triggering the libs, triggering the left. They need the left in order to do that. Like, they need us, you know? And obviously, for people who are liberals or on the left already, other libs, other leftists are just better to hang around. Nobody fucking wants to be friends with conservatives. That's why you only ever hear about conservatives that complain about, like, losing friends to politics and stuff. The same reason that exists is the same reason that websites all have terms of service that restrict how much of a Nazi you can be, right? Because otherwise, nobody would ever use the social media platform because it would just suck. Some Republican voters wish they could make it illegal to have the block button. Oh, yeah, they absolutely do. Trump, like, or not Trump, fucking Elon Musk tried to basically neuter and water down the block function on Twitter for that exact reason. He didn't like that people could block him. Like, he wanted to be able to harass people that blocked him still. So that's why he did that. Meanwhile, over on Blue Sky, it's like you block somebody and it nukes everything they've ever touched in your feed or something like that. This will be my last race, I think. Oh, and it's one of my favorite tracks. Nice. One time I was arguing with someone on Progressive Victory and why I think the Republican Party needs to stop existing. It was like an average voter. Yeah, you know, that'll tend to happen, right? People are not ready for that because the average voter is so two-party system pilled that they're like, well, if we don't have a Nazi party, then it'll be a one-party state. It's like, you don't think there's a deeper issue there? Like, that's the argument that I've... Like, hell, there are even people who have an education who will argue that shit. And it's like, dog, you cannot be this dumb. And that's themselves. Yeah, you know, my face when... When somebody hits you with a take so two-party system pilled, you gotta give them the, coalition government stare. Out of Star Wars? How so? So far, I'm actually 2 for 2 on being able to do that shortcut. I had a mushroom both laps. Purple greens. Imagine having a two-party system. I know, it sucks. You know? Snipe? Not quite. Alright. Now that we got a great leader, but at least ours can't deal as much damage and controversy as yours can. Yeah, there is something to be said about the way that a sort of a multi-party system kind of limits how bad things can get. Like, a two-party system, at the very least, seems to accelerate the path down the far-right rabbit hole, if that makes sense, right? Because, you know, both parties have to be so big that they can, you know, encompass the entire country between the two of them, right? And that means they're going to be very, like, closely paid attention to by businesses at the, like, federal level, at the national level and whatever. Basically, what I'm trying to say is the natural dynamic of a two-party system right now is that you get one party that's kind of feckless and liberal and the other party that's fascist. And that's because they both have to be massive political parties and like a well-established political machine. So they have to have all these business connections, and the business connections will only really allow you to be either feckless liberals or fascists, you know? Because anything outside of that, i.e. socialism, is not really palatable to the business class. So we don't have to work together with liberals. Look, I don't necessarily like object to a political system that where you like coalition build with liberals, right? Like there are plenty of countries that have like a liberal party and stuff like that. The thing is just that like in the Netherlands, in Germany, in France, whatever, and yes, it is always class that does this. Even that small measure of decentralizing power makes it much harder to completely capture a political system like that, because it will always be just that much more representative of the body politic that constitutes it, right? It'll be that much more representative of the people, you know? when you have not only a fascist and liberal party, but a fascist party, a liberal party, a socialist party, a green party, a social democratic party, a, like, I don't know, a single issue party, maybe a separatist party, whatever. You have all these different interest groups that are now represented in politics because it's almost impossible for any one of them to get that like 50% vote share because the system isn't designed in a first past the post kind of fashion, you know? And that leads to a more active and healthy political climate when there are multiple groups of interest that have to jockey like that, as opposed to everything just being like consolidated by the business class, right? Because a lot of people have described the American two-party system as the uniparty, and there's a reason for that, because the working class just kind of isn't included in that dynamic. Meanwhile, in Europe, you actually have socialist parties where, for all their flaws, it seems like lately they've been ramping up their efforts to reincorporate the working class into national politics and trying to recenter them into discussion as the far right, you know, gains ground in these countries, right? Zion MK, welcome back. I'm sorry you caught me right at the end of the stream. It was a little shorter today because starting to sweat up here and I still don't have air conditioning. People in America be like, you have socialist parties? Yeah, I mean, for real, you know? Definitely is the only reason Schoof doesn't have way too much power. Shows how flawed the American system is. Oh, yeah. There's also something to be said that the Netherlands and these other countries are parliamentary systems where you can call snap elections and stuff like that. You know, in the United States, we have a presidential system, and we're not the only country that has a presidential system. France also has one, but France works a lot better, even though it still doesn't work great. In the United States, we basically vote for a king. Imagine a country that has a monarch, and that monarch still has power. It's not like a purely symbolic monarchy like Sweden, the Netherlands, the UK, whatever. It's a country where the monarch has power. But instead of the monarch being decided by hereditary rule, it's decided by a vote tally every 4 years. That's the kind of system that America has. The executive branch and the president have way too much fucking power in America. You know? It's a whole ass can of worms. And like, now more than ever, like, the Europeans are cooking when they say that, like, America's two-party system fucking sucks. Like, our politicians are trying worse things than yours because they can do so easier than Trump and get away with it. But in our case, we're more protected from such idiocracies. Yeah, I do think so. There are some, like, because politicians in Europe, in other systems, tend to have more genuinely held beliefs than politicians in America, sometimes you'll get crazier shit. But because like, there's a much more, like, because they're not representative of an entire half of the political system, it's harder for that to have lasting impacts in a way it would in America. Also, Xylan, feel free to share. This is the end of the stream, but I just want to, like, stop playing for a little bit. If you want to share, you can share. I'll keep going for a few minutes longer. You know, that was just my last race there. Yeah, no, yeah, I'm sorry, you guys, you know, been coming in at the end. That's partly on me. Join stream ends. Yeah, again, look, that's mostly on me because, you know, my schedule has been odd lately, and it's also hot, and I didn't get a great night's sleep, and etc. etc. Certified streamer moment, you know. Cursed? That's true. If anything, it's my sleep schedule that's cursed. Been trying to fix that shit for 6 months and nothing doing. You think you're not gonna have a good sleep now? Wait till fascism gets stronger. Oh, I know. Website, you can go find info about the candidates for each district in the election. Yeah, I was looking at that a couple days ago when the elections were happening. Of course, I saw that we do, in fact, live in the funniest timeline. Not only did the Liberals win the election in relative terms, Pierre Poilievre lost his own seat, which is delicious. It just, give me that shit all day. Give me more. It tastes so fucking good. and shared this one guy from his district's profile is wild. Dude, politicians particularly in other countries, like, there is some crazy shit on their profile. I guess in America, this would be applicable to, like, state-level politicians. You would find some crazy shit on a politician's history page. You'll support some, like, yeah, I support the fucking shooting all geese with shotguns bill, or something like that. And it's like, bro, what? And then it's like, this person is currently the governor. Send it in Discord, just look at his fucking name. Let me see this. Santa Claus? Huh? Rhinoceros. Hold on, let me see this shit. Santa Claus Chatham. Rhino candidate for Waterloo. Rhino as in, like, the animal, a rhinoceros, not like R-I-N-O, like Republicans here or whatever the fuck. You in the Progressive Victory Discord? I am. I'm not very active there, though. It's been a while since I worked with them directly. I'm Santa Claus. You can trust me to enter your homes every year, so why not trust me in Parliament? Politicians love to this is a real page, by the way. Politicians love to promise everything under the sun to get elected, yet conveniently forget their promises once elected. Unlike them, Santa Claus always delivers and his gifts are never late. Have a very merry election season. It's the most wonderful time every 4 years. The politicians are lying, the lobbyists prying, and I need a beer. It's the most wonderful time every 4 years. Nice. Promises. Christmas every day of the year, the abolishment of the law of gravity, and more goodies. Thank you, Santa Claus. Very cool. Think Santa would actually be more progressive than most? Oh, yeah. Saint Nicholas of, I fucking forget which province of the Roman Empire he was from, he ended up being the patron saint of children and prostitutes. And thieves. Children, thieves, and prostitutes. So, yes, for his time, he was pretty damn progressive. Something like this is what I need to keep calm, not go nuts about my own government, even though having Santa as your leader would be pretty neat. True. At least Santa wouldn't cut school lunches. That's big facts. He would be giving food to kids left and right. He would actually, Santa Claus would, or Santa Claus, fucking Saint Nicholas actually gave money to poor kids. That's why he's the patron saint of thieves and children and prostitutes. He would steal money and he would give it to kids, poor kids. Attach turbines to politicians in order to harness all the power of their hot air. He might be cooking. We all know there's nothing in a politician's skull except for hot air and a superiority complex. I can testify to that, since I am one. Well, that hot air could probably turn some turbines and generate some sort of good for society. Renewable energy? The big questions, the real questions finally being asked. The worst Santa's ever done is give coal to the kids as a troll. You know, that actually wasn't part of the Santa Claus myth until the fucking Germans got a hold of it. And originally it was Krampus comes and eats your child if they're bad and misbehave. They watered it down later to, oh yeah, the bad kids get coal. There was no distinction in the original in the original depiction of Saint Nicholas and Santa Claus before he was turned into Sinterklaas by the Germans. There was no distinction between good children and bad children. It was just like he gave money to the needy. You know? But ever since the Germans touched him with their Germanness, he does a little bit of trolling. What is this? Always the Christian types that ruins everything? That's true. Sinterklaas greater than Santa Claus? That's probably true. Because that version's way more metal. Honestly, give me the version of Santa Claus where it's like, if you're good, you get presents, yay. If you're bad, we fucking, like, send Krampus to eat you. Like, that's way more funny than you get coal for Christmas. Like, oh no, you get black lung. Breaks down your bedroom door. That's true. Ours comes from Spain, up some North Pole prick. Yeah, it's really weird that they did the whole, like, Santa comes from the North Pole thing. Because Nicholas, the guy who became known as Saint Nicholas, is from what is now Turkey. And was at the time, like, the Greek provinces of the Roman Empire. Like, that's where he's from. And he look like, if you look at one of the early depictions of Nicholas, he's very Turkish looking. Except for, he doesn't have the giant mustache, you know? Classic Turkish moment. But, you know, otherwise he looks very Turkish. Anywho. Alright. I've gone on for long enough. Abolish elf humans. What? That's fucked up. Human rights are not elf rights. Think about it. If we get those elves working around the clock, we can have Christmas every day. That's a stat holiday. 365 days a year. It's not even dehumanization. They weren't humans to begin with. Fuck you, Santa. You know what? Fuck this guy. My man is anti-labor rights for elves. Unsubbed. Posted cringe. I will be canceling Santa Claus on Twitter later. Thank you. Calling Sinterklaas Turkish will be the death of you with all your Dutch viewers. Well, he wasn't Turkish. He was Greek. He lived in what is now Turkey, and he looks extremely Turkish. There is a difference. But yes, that is probably true. All the Dutch people will hate me for saying that Santa Claus looks very Turkish or something. You done? You done? Yeah, it's over for me. It's over. My career is done. Dutch viewers seething. My career in shambles. That's a solid 40% of my viewer base or whatever. Last time I looked at the statistics. Anyways, Cody Schwab is live. You should tell him that Turkish Santa Claus sent you to say hi. Cody Schwab is a professional Super Smash Bros. Melee player. He was uncontested #1 in the world in the year 2023. He's pretty good at the game. And he's also a smart dude. Has some cool things to say. Pretty funny. He plays Fox. He plays Super Smash Bros. He is good at the game. Yeah. Very good at the game. Like, there's me. I'm pretty good at the game. There's me. There's people who would fuck me up. And Cody Schwab would fuck those people up. That's about the territory he's in. Reunite with the Dutchies, come for you and your impressions. That sounds fun. I will be doing voice impressions for the Dutch homies. Perhaps then they can forgive me for my characterization of Turkish Santa Claus. Alright, I'll see you guys later.